For most of our lives, we've been taught to keep going, to push through, to work harder, to move faster, and for many years, that approach may have served us well. It helped us build careers, care for families, meet responsibilities, and keep moving forward through life's many seasons. But after 60, many people begin noticing something different. The body starts responding in a different way, not because it has become weak, but because its needs have changed. And yet, many of us continue treating the body the same way we always have. Push harder, move faster, try more, do more. But what if the body is asking for something else now? Not less effort, but a different kind of effort. One built on awareness instead of pressure, understanding instead of force. Because sometimes, the wisest thing we can do is not push harder. It's learn how to listen more carefully. And perhaps that leads to an important question. What if slowing down isn't weakness? What if it's wisdom? One of the reasons slowing down can feel so unfamiliar is that many of us spent decades learning to rely on effort. If something felt challenging, we pushed a little harder. If we felt tired, we kept going a little longer. And often, that worked. But after 60, many people begin noticing that the body responds differently than it once did. A busy day may require a little more recovery. A poor night's sleep may be felt a little more deeply. Energy may come and go in different ways, and the body may become more sensitive to how it is treated. These changes can be frustrating at first, especially if we continue expecting the body to respond exactly as it did years ago. But perhaps the real question isn't, why can't my body do what it used to do? Perhaps the better question is, what is my body asking for now? Because growing older doesn't mean the body stops responding. In many ways, it becomes more responsive, more aware, more honest. It lets us know when we've done too much. It lets us know when we need rest. And it often rewards consistency more than intensity, which is why the goal after 60 is not necessarily to do less. It's to do things differently. The body is not asking for less care. It's asking for a different kind of care, the kind of care that respects recovery, values consistency, and understands that strength is not built by constantly pushing harder. Sometimes, strength is built by learning when to slow down, when to listen, and when to move in ways that support the body instead of demanding more from it. One of the most common misunderstandings about aging is the belief that moving more slowly automatically means becoming weaker. For many people, slower movement can feel uncomfortable at first, because throughout much of life, speed is often associated with ability. The faster we move, the more capable we appear. The more we accomplish, the more successful we feel. And over time, it's easy to begin believing that slowing down is something to fear. But slowing down and declining are not the same thing. In fact, they can be very different experiences. A person can move quickly while paying very little attention to their body, And a person can move slowly while being deeply connected to every step they take. One is driven by momentum, the other is guided by awareness. And after 60, awareness often becomes one of the most valuable forms of strength we can develop, because when we slow down intentionally, we begin noticing things we may have overlooked before. We notice how our feet connect with the ground. We notice how our balance shifts as we move. We notice when the body feels comfortable and when it may need a little extra support. A slower walk may actually be a more confident walk, not because it covers more distance, but because it is steady, present, and controlled. The same is true when standing up from a chair, climbing a few steps, or carrying groceries into the house. Moving slowly doesn't necessarily mean the body is struggling. Sometimes it means the body is moving with greater awareness, greater balance, and greater intention, because strength is not measured only by how fast we move or how much we can do. Sometimes strength is found in the ability to move with patience, to move with stability, to move with confidence. And perhaps that's why slowing down can be surprisingly powerful. It allows us to stay connected to what the body is telling us, to respond instead of react, to move with the body instead of constantly trying to push it forward. Slow is not the opposite of strength. It can be one of its forms. And often, the strongest people are not the ones who move the fastest. They are the ones who know how to move wisely. When most people think about movement, they often think about outcomes, burning calories, building strength, improving fitness, reaching a goal. And while those things certainly have value, they are not the only gifts movement has to offer, especially after 60, because when we begin moving more slowly and intentionally, something interesting starts to happen. We begin receiving benefits that have very little to do with performance, and a great deal to do with how we experience everyday life. The first gift is awareness. When we slow down, we notice more. We notice how our body feels when we wake up in the morning. We notice how we stand, how we walk, how we breathe, and how different movements affect the way we feel throughout the day. Many people spend years moving on autopilot, rushing from one thing to the next. But slower movement invites us back into the present moment. It helps us reconnect with the body we live in every day, and that awareness can become a powerful source of wisdom. The second gift is safety, not because slow movement is always easier, but because the body often feels more supported when it has time to respond. When movements become less rushed, balance often improves, coordination becomes clearer, and the body has an opportunity to work with us rather than keep up with us. There is something deeply reassuring about moving in a way that feels steady, predictable, and controlled. The body tends to respond well to that feeling, because safety is not only physical, it is something we experience emotionally as well. And the third gift is confidence. Not the confidence that comes from proving something, but the confidence that comes from knowing yourself. When you move with awareness, and when you move with a sense of safety, trust naturally begins to grow. You start noticing that your body is still capable, still adaptable, still willing to support you through everyday life. And little by little, confidence becomes less about what you can accomplish and more about how comfortably you can rely on yourself. Because fast movement often chases results, but slow movement builds relationship. A relationship with your body, a relationship built on listening, on understanding, and on working together instead of constantly pushing harder. And over time, that relationship may become one of the greatest sources of strength we have. Perhaps one of the greatest myths about exercise is the idea that more is always better. More effort, more intensity, more determination. And because of that belief, many people begin new routines with the very best intentions. They commit to doing more, moving more, pushing harder, and for a little while, they may even feel successful. But often, something happens. The routine becomes exhausting. Life becomes busy. The body becomes tired. And eventually, the routine that felt so promising becomes difficult to maintain. Not because the person failed, but because the plan asked for more than it could realistically sustain. And perhaps that's why consistency is so powerful. Because the movements that help us most are not always the most impressive ones. They're the ones we can continue returning to, day after day, week after week, year after year. A gentle 10-minute walk each morning, a few minutes of stretching, standing up and moving throughout the day. These actions may seem small, but small actions repeated consistently have a remarkable way of shaping our lives. In many cases, a gentle walk every day can offer more lasting benefits than an intense workout performed only once in a while. Because the body responds to repetition, it responds to routine, it responds to being invited into movement regularly, without fear, without pressure, without needing to prove anything. And perhaps that is one of the wisest lessons movement can teach us after 60. The goal is not to do the most. The goal is to keep going, because consistency often matters more than intensity, and the movements that stay with us are often the ones that support us most. Perhaps one of the most meaningful shifts that happens with age has very little to do with the body itself, and much more to do with the relationship we have with it. When we're younger, many of us learn to treat the body like a tool, something that should keep performing, keep producing, keep pushing forward no matter what. If we're tired, we push through. If something hurts, we ignore it. If the body asks for rest, we often convince it to wait. And for a time, that approach may seem to work, but eventually, the body begins asking for a different kind of relationship, not one built on demands, but one built on respect. Because after 60, many people begin discovering that the body is not something to control. It's something to care for, something to listen to, something to work with, rather than constantly working against. And perhaps this is where slowing down takes on a deeper meaning. Because slowing down is not the same as giving up. It is not a sign of weakness, and it is not a lack of ambition. Sometimes, slowing down is simply the decision to pay attention, to notice what the body is saying, to recognize what it needs, and to respond with kindness rather than pressure. In that way, moving more slowly can become an act of self-respect, a quiet acknowledgement that the body has carried you through decades of life, through responsibilities, through challenges, through seasons of joy and seasons of difficulty, and now, instead of demanding more from it every day, you begin offering something in return: patience, understanding, care. Because slowing down isn't giving up on yourself. It may be one of the deepest ways of caring for yourself. And often, the people who age most gracefully are not the ones who push the hardest. They are the ones who learn how to work in partnership with the body they have today. As we grow older, many of us begin discovering something that wasn't always easy to see when we were younger. That strength is not always found in doing more, and wisdom is not always found in moving faster. Sometimes, both are found in learning how to slow down, how to pay attention, how to notice what the body is trying to tell us. Because your body is not asking you to prove anything. It is not asking you to compete. It is not asking you to keep up with anyone else. It is simply asking you to listen, to notice, to respond with care, and to move with it instead of against it. Because after all these years, your body has carried you through so much. Through responsibilities, through challenges, through moments of joy and moments of loss, it has continued showing up for you. And perhaps now, this season of life offers an opportunity to show up for it as well. Not through pressure, not through force, but through patience, understanding, and gentle, consistent movement. Because after 60, the goal isn't to move faster than everyone else. The goal is to keep moving through life with strength, confidence, and peace. One gentle step at a time. Take care and stay radiant.